Hello everyone, this is Andrew at Crown Academy of English. Today we are doing a grammar lesson about the past perfect tense. So let's start. Yesterday, Mark was tired because he had walked to work. So here is the past perfect tense. This is the form. He had walked. And in this example, there are two actions or events from the past. Okay, this is in the past, and there are two actions. And they happen in this order. So first, the first action is that Mark walks. And the second action is later, Mark is tired. So first Mark walks, then he is tired. And we use the past perfect to describe the first action or event from the past. So again, from our example, the first action is walk, Mark walks. And so we use the past perfect to describe that action. It is the first of two actions. He had walked. Okay? So in this lesson, I will teach you the form, the common uses, because this is only one use of the past perfect. There are many others. And also, at the end of the lesson, there is an exercise to test your understanding. Okay? So let's start. So here is the sentence. We have already seen this. Mark was tired because he had walked to work. So let's look at the form in more detail. I had walked. You had walked. He, she, it had walked. We had walked. You had walked. They had walked. So the affirmative form is subject, then had, and had is the past simple of the verb have, and then we have the main verb in the past participle form. So walked is the past participle of the verb walk. And in the example, or in the form, the verb had, okay, this is the auxiliary verb. So here the verb have is being used as an auxiliary verb. And this is the main verb. So walk, or walked, is the main verb. Okay? The contracted form of the affirmative form. So here is the full form, and here is the contracted form. I'd walked. You'd walked. He'd walked. She'd walked. It had walked. We'd walked. You'd walked. And they'd walked. Okay, so we are replacing the letter H and A by an apostrophe. Okay, so as always, the contracted form, we normally use it in spoken English. Okay, it is rare that we actually write it unless it is direct speech. Okay, so this is the contracted form. The negative form. He was happy because he had not walked to work. He had not walked to work. I had not walked. You had not walked. He, she, it had not walked. We had not walked. You had not walked. And they had not walked. So the negative form is the subject, had, not. So this is what makes the negative, and the main verb in the past participle form. So this is what changes. This is what is new. This is the word not in the middle, in between the word had and the main verb. The contracted form of the negative: I hadn't walked, you hadn't walked, he hadn't walked, she hadn't walked, it hadn't walked, we hadn't walked, you hadn't walked, and they hadn't walked. Okay? So that is one way of forming the contracted form of the negative. And we also have a second method. We can also say, I'd not walked, you'd not walked, he'd not walked, she'd not walked, it'd not walked, we'd not walked, you'd not walked, and they'd not walked. So for the negative, you have two choices for the contracted form. Question form: had she walked to the airport? Had I walked? Had you walked? Had he, she, or it walked? Had we walked? Had you walked? And had they walked? So we have the word had, which is, as always, the past simple of have, the subject, and the main verb in the past participle form. And very important, at the end of the sentence, we must write a question mark, to show that it is a question. Okay? Had she walked? So in fact, we reverse the order of the subject and the word had. Question form, again. How had he lost weight? So here we have what we call a question word, and then we have the usual question form. Had he lost? Where had she been? So again, we have the word where, which is a question word, and then the question form. Had she been? What had he eaten? Question word, followed by the question form, with always a question mark at the end. So the form is a question word, either what, where, why, who, how. Then the verb had, the subject, and the main verb in the past participle form, with the question mark at the end. The past participle form. Well, the general or the basic rule for regular verbs is to add ed to the base form. Example, walk becomes walked, clean, cleaned. But this is only the basic rule for regular verbs. There are many other rules, and for all the rules and exceptions for forming the past participle for regular and irregular verbs, then use a good dictionary. Okay? In this video, we will not have time to explain all the rules for the past participle. Okay, that is not the goal of this lesson. But very quickly, here are the past participle forms of some common irregular verbs. Okay, so here is the list. So very quickly, be, been, break, broken, buy, bought, choose, chosen, come, come, do, done, drink, drunk, eat, eaten, go, gone, have, had, make, made, run, run, say, said, see, seen, think, thought, and many more. There are no rules, unfortunately, for irregular verbs. You must simply learn them. Okay, so it just needs some work. So let's look at the use in more detail now. So actions in the past before other actions. So we use the past perfect to describe an action in the past before another action in the past. And let's look at some examples. She passed the exam because she had studied hard. Okay, so in the past, first she studied and then she passed the exam. So she studied first. So we use the past perfect. She had studied. When she arrived at the station, the train had already left. Okay, so in red we have the usual form of the past perfect, and in blue this is an adverb, already. So it is important to learn the position of the adverb. It is between had and the main verb. Okay? So first the train left, then she arrived at the station. The train had already left. Past perfect. Mark was happy because he had found a new job. He had found. The past perfect. Reported speech, and we sometimes call this indirect speech. In English, there are two methods to say what somebody has said. The first method is direct speech. Now, direct speech, this is the exact words that the person said. Example. Mark said, "I like chocolate." So the exact words that Mark said, the exact words are, "I like chocolate." So that is direct speech. Reported speech, or indirect speech, is when we report what a person said, but using our own words. Okay? So it is from our perspective. Example. So this sentence in the reported speech version with the same meaning is, Mark said that he liked chocolate. So the meaning of these two sentences is the same. And if the reporting verb is in the past, then often we change the tenses of the reported speech. So this is the reporting verb. So if this verb is in the past, which is true here, then we change the tenses of the reported speech. Here. So here you can see we have changed the tense. Because here, I like chocolate is in the present simple tense. And when we convert it to reported speech, it has now become the past simple tense. Okay? So, for example, this is what we have seen. The present simple has become the past simple. And if the direct speech tense is the present perfect, then in reported speech it is the past perfect. And if the direct speech is the past simple, then the reported speech is also the past perfect. So these two rules here, these rules, we are now going to look at them in more detail. I'm going to give you some examples. So just remember, very important, it is only if the reporting verb is in the past, then we have to change the tenses. So we will now look in more detail and I'll give you examples. So we'll look at the present perfect and converting it into the past perfect. Example: Mark said, "I have lost my key." So that is the direct speech. Those are the exact words that Mark said. And in reported speech, Mark said that he had lost his key. So this is now the past perfect. Mark said, "Jane has gone to London." Mark said that Jane had gone to London. Past perfect. And let's look at the second rule, which was if the direct speech is in the past simple, then the reported speech becomes the past perfect. Mark said, "I bought a car." And in reported speech, Mark said that he had bought a car. It is now the past perfect. And finally, Mark said, "We enjoyed our meal." In reported speech, Mark said that they had enjoyed their meal. Okay? So these are the two examples of when we use the past perfect in reported speech. Conditional. We use the past perfect to describe an unreal or imaginary situation in the past. Very important. Only in the past. Example: if he had walked to work, he would have been late. Okay, so this is an imaginary situation in the past. In fact, he took the bus to work and he wasn't late. But if he had walked to work, then he would have been late. Okay, so it is imaginary and it is in the past. So we use the past perfect. Example 2. If I had had more money, I would have bought you a watch. Okay, so again, an imaginary situation. And this is interesting because we can see the word had twice. And remember, the first one here, this is had, this is an auxiliary verb. So the verb have is being used as an auxiliary verb. And this is the verb have being used as the main verb. So it looks strange, it looks a bit weird, but it is perfectly correct. It is the past perfect of the verb have. Had, had. Finally, if you had invited me to the party, I would have come. Okay? Unfortunately, you didn't invite me to the party, so I didn't come. But in an imaginary situation in the past, if you had invited me, I would have come. I would have said yes. I would have accepted. Okay, so it's the past perfect. Exercise. Put the verbs in brackets into the past perfect form. And do not use the contracted form. Example: my parents clean the bathroom before leaving the house. So I would like you to put this verb into the past perfect form. Well, the answer is, my parents had cleaned the bathroom before leaving the house. Question 1, and I will give you a few seconds. The answer is, Jane called the police because somebody had stolen her car. Question 2. The answer is, she said that she had seen the latest Batman film. Question 3. I would have called you if I know you were sad. So I'll give you a few seconds. The answer is, I would have called you if I had known you were sad. If I had known you were sad. Past perfect. The last question. And here there is an adverb. And this is the verb. So I want you to put the adverb in the correct position. The answer is, when we arrived at the party, everybody had already left. So in red we have the past perfect form, and the adverb is in the middle. So the adverb already is after had and before the main verb. Okay? So there we are. That is the end of the lesson. I hope you have learned something from this. If you want to subscribe, you can click here. Here is my Twitter account. And here are a few other videos which you might be interested in watching. And you can just simply click on the screen to start those videos. Okay, my name is Andrew at Crown Academy of English. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and I will see you very soon. Bye-bye.